The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is November 17th, 2024, and we are going to look at the situation within Ukraine. So first of all, let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. Now, in recent days, apparently the Russians kicked off, I think, an offensive in the direction of Orikhiv or Orikov. And as far as I'm concerned, they have reached the outskirts of Maya Tokmachka, which is the town or village that comes before Orikhiv. Now, I don't know any further information, but as far as I know, the Russians have advanced in this direction here and are also reportedly advancing from the Robotine direction too. So, it appears they have launched an offensive in this direction, along with Guleipol as well. So the Russians are aiming to start the battle for both Orikhiv and Guleipol at the same time as winter nears. In fact, I've already heard reliable reports that the first snowflakes have dropped in Kursk Oblast, but we'll get to that later. So now, let's look at the Velika Novosilka direction. The Russians took control over the village of Makarivka, but then the Ukrainians took it back, though I don't know if the other mappers have really confirmed it yet, but that's apparently what Deep State UA claims. And looking at the situation in the southern Donetsk direction, it does not look good for the Ukrainians here either. The Russians have put the Ukrainians who are here in these series of villages between Kharkove and the Ugledar direction in a cauldron. And as far as I know, the Russians are getting very close to the strategic village of Uspenivka. And if this were to fall, basically everything here is going to fall easily, like dominoes. And going further up north, it appears that the road to Kharkove, like from the southern direction, has been cut off by the Russians because they just captured the village of Dauniji. And with this, Kharkove is now besieged on most sides. Sorry, I almost had a little brain freeze there, but I'm sure you all know what I'm saying. But yeah, the Russians have now besieged Kharkove from the eastern, southern, and most importantly, the northern front. In fact, speaking of which, Novoilinka, which is like one of the neighborhoods in all of Kharkove, has been taken by Russia. And in addition, the village of Berestiki, or Berestiki, is also being contested right now. In fact, Deep State UA has confirmed this. So Kharkove is now mostly encircled, and I don't know how long it will be until the town falls to Russia, but the fact that they have been able, the Russians that is, to cut off most entrances into the town means that the Ukrainians definitely got to evacuate, like now. Like, they cannot stay there for any much longer. It doesn't matter how long they fight for Kharkove, they're going to lose it. Now, in the Pokrovsk direction, or the Selidova direction, Russians have made some gains near the village of Zoria, and have also taken the village of Yurivka. Russians have also captured the villages of Hrivka and Petrivka. They are now not that far from this road here that separates Andriivka and Pokrovsk. And if they were to take control of this road here, they can also cut through and enter Dnipropetrovsk from this direction. From the southern direction, that is. But yeah, so as of right now, the Russians are advancing not just in Kharkove direction, but they're also advancing in the Pokrovsk direction. And as I said in the last videos or so, the Russians are going to flank Pokrovsk before they enter it. So now, looking at the city of Toretsk, The Russians, after losing Zabolka, or the southern Toretsk neighborhood, they have started a counteroffensive in this area and have retaken control over almost roughly half of it. Geolocations have confirmed by Creamy Caprice, for instance, that most of the Zabolka district is under Russian control and that this is pretty much outdated. So the Russians have regained the initiative in southern Toretsk, and it's looking pretty likely that they're probably going to, at some point, go for this industrial part of Toretsk. And as soon as this is done, the Ukrainians will lose any strategic initiative that they have over the town or city, and they'll probably just withdraw to Konstantinivka. Now, in the Chazov Yar direction, or Artyomovsk direction, Ukrainians have retaken ground near Stepuchki, or Stepochke, but in Chazov Yar itself, bad news for the Ukrainians. So after taking these two far, eastern neighborhoods here, that are not that far from the Micro Canal district, the Russians have reportedly entered the town center of Chazov Yar. And with this, we are entering potentially the decisive phase for the Battle of Chazov Yar. And it's looking more and more likely that the battle is probably going to be over by either December 2024 or January 2025. This battle is not going to last for much longer, and I don't know when it will end, but it's definitely going to end this winter. So yeah, Chazov Yar town center is now partly under Russian control, though only this section here, but if anything, the recent news coming out is not good news for the Ukrainians. So nothing in Seversk directions, so we can skip that. Nothing much going on in Terny direction too, so we can skip that as well. Not much in this part of the Kupiansk direction. And, of course, the elephant in the room, Kupiansk city itself. So, a few days ago, it is now official, the third battle of Kupiansk has started. This is news that I did not expect to see happening in 2024. I thought the Battle of Kupiansk, round 3, was going to happen in 2025, the first quarter or so of next year. But we're already here. There's conflicting reports regarding how much control the Russians have of, northern Kupiansk right now. A lot of conflicting reports. Russians say they have consolidated their gains in the town or city. Ukrainians say they have repulsed the attacks, but there's no definitive answer. We don't have, concrete, geolocations to prove who's right or who's wrong quite yet. But one thing for sure, the Battle of Kupiansk has started, and because of that, everybody here on this part of the Oskar River is screwed. They need to leave immediately. They're in a cauldron, right now, because of the third Battle of Kupiansk. Nothing going on in the northern Kharkiv direction, though there is a little unusual thing going on here. Apparently, the village of Sotnitsky Kosachok is under Russian control. I don't know how this happened, but it did happen. I don't know how long the Russians are going to be here, but again, this is very weird. In the Kursk direction, the Russians are continuing to try to push the Ukrainians back, though there hasn't really been a lot of progress. Not a lot. There are some villages here that have been retaken by the Russians, and there are some Ukrainians who are literally in a cauldron right now, and there's some gray areas too, so keep that in mind. And then we got a little surprise. Okay? And that surprise is in Chernigov Oblast. What the hell happened? Apparently, a couple days or so ago, the Russians have re-entered Chernigov Oblast for the first time since 2022 and have taken the villages of Novoselivka, Kolos, and Moravy. Now, keep in mind, people, these villages are really insignificant, and the gains here made are very tiny, so it's kind of difficult to really take them seriously at this time, but I don't know, maybe the Russians are planning something long-term in Chernigov Oblast. Maybe not, who knows. But after the recent announcement or rumors that just came out about the fate of long-range missiles in Ukraine, I'm beginning to think that the Russians may have no choice but to expand their operations here. And speaking of which, as all of you know, the announcement just came from Washington, D.C. that they're going to supply the Ukrainian government with ATACMS missiles, which means that the Ukrainians can now attack some areas deep within Russia. As far as I know, these areas confirmed are Kursk Oblast, Belgrade Oblast, Bryansk Oblast, Krasnodar Oblast, and I guess Rostov Oblast. And Crimea. Sorry, I forgot that. But yeah, so it's not really confirmed yet. In fact, Zelensky himself just said in a video that just came out that such reports have not really been official yet, and they haven't heard such things until recently. But as far as I know, the possibility is kind of probable because Joe Biden literally has nothing left to lose. He's on his way out. He's a lame duck now, so he can essentially either chillax or do all sorts of crazy shit like while he's on his way out. His presidency is basically done. Like, he's cooked. But I feel like he's gonna maybe try to screw Trump over and his upcoming administration while he is departing Washington this January. And the way he's gonna do that is by giving these sort of weapons to Ukraine, which will make future peace talks and negotiations almost impossible to be held. Like, they will never be allowed to happen. So yeah. In my opinion, I feel like applying them with such weapons not only escalates the war, but it also dooms the entire left bank Ukraine. Like, you will actually see a proper campaign to take all these provinces in eastern Ukraine. Chernigov, Sumy, Kharkov, Poltava, Dnipropetrovsk, at least part of it, part of Cherkasy, and eastern Kiev. Like, they will potentially become targets of Russia in 2025 and 2026 because of these provocations by not just Washington, but also by London, because I heard they're apparently going to apply the Ukrainians with Storm Shadows. Germany also wants to apply them with Taurus missiles. I mean, all sorts of crap is going to be given to them because a lot of people in the West are fearing what Donald Trump is going to do once he comes back to office in a couple months from now. And while I do think their fears are quite valid because of the fact that Trump does not want to fight Russia because, let's be honest, it's very stupid, they also don't want Ukraine to lose as well. So, with that, I'm going to close out today's video. It wasn't a very long video, by the way, when compared to the others. But, yeah, that's going to do it for today's update. And I'll see you all next week. So take care and peace out. Goodbye.